So tell me a little bit about where you came from in Australia.
Yeah, cool. So I'm from Melbourne in Australia. Born and bred. I'm actually half Islander, half Australian, but that's another story for another day. But yeah, I've been in marketing for about 20 years, and started off working in pubs and doing little marketing programs for a pub group down here, and just kind of took a very scenic route to impressive to where we are now. We're in Texas now, but just been. I remember growing up, and I grew up in small businesses. My mum and dad always owned. We had franchises, supermarkets, 7-Elevens, a range of different things. So I've always been kind of interested in owning my own business, running my own show, but I've also been pretty kind of keenly aware of how marketing plays a part in that.
Okay.
And just how big a difference it can make to a business, whether you've got control on that or you don't have control. And I also remember just loving ads as a kid, and when the ads would come on telly,
Right,
being really excited
right.
for those.
What tell me a bit about your parents' business. That's interesting. One of my other friends told me the same thing, and my parents had their own business, and it just
Yeah.
dawned on me, like, are we all kind of coming from some sort of tree?
Yeah.
What kind of business do your parents run?
Yeah, so they had a 7-Eleven,
Okay.
and then they had a supermarket, like a licensed grocer, we call it back home. So a little supermarket, and then they had a BP, which is like another fuel station.
Yep.
And then they had a big roadhouse, which was like a BP, which had like McDonald's and a KFC and a few other things kind of attached to it.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I've kind of grown up around retail. I grew up behind the counter,
Right.
serving customers and stacking shelves and that sort of thing.
And I would assume the fun part is like the business side of things. That like I didn't really pick up on that as a kid, I guess. Now I look back and I think about it. So when did you kind of move into marketing? From when did you decide that was something you liked? Was it just because you saw your parents doing this and like they were? How did your parents market that? That's an interesting. Like, what were they doing? Were they have a bunch of disparate stores that were all separate, and they kind of tell me about it.
The thing with that was, I guess what I saw was the challenges for them, because they were franchisees. They were really, the marketing was done by the
Right.
franchisor. So
Right.
they were just given marketing material, and then they'd see, this is like the 80s and the 90s,
Sure.
the noughties. They'd see like, they'd see the flyers that would go out into people's letterboxes. They'd see the
Right.
branding. They'd basically get it dictated to them, which is a frustrating situation. They
Yeah.
get told, okay, well, you're selling this for this much. You've got to buy this much of it. There's not going to be much margin. And here's what it looks like going out to your potential customers.
Right.
And I just remember feeling like, oh man, they've got all the power up there. Like, and
That's
there's
interesting.
ways that things can be done differently for our particular, geographical area and our
Right.
customers.
So did you go work any normal jobs between doing mom and dad stuff until you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went to, like I said, I took the scenic route to where I am. Like, I was always fascinated with advertising, but didn't really like head down that path at first. I just did an arts degree
Right.
out of school, but I was like the world's worst student, and I got kicked out of uni after a couple of years. Just terrible. Rocked up to an exam barefoot and drunk, and that was enough. They said,
Beautiful.
don't come back.
Beautiful.
So, but that was actually where I started working in pubs, and started to get a bit of a handle on a marketing budget for a pub. And okay, well, how does this get people through the door?
Right.
What sort of promotions can we run? How much budget have I got to advertise? Where can I advertise it?
Okay.
Little budgets, for a big pub group. But
Right.
that was my first foray into actually seeing, okay, well, if I try some print ads here, and I've got a little bit I can put into here. There was nothing online at this time. This is late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really cool just seeing the ROI from that, seeing people come through the door, seeing the drink specials, which I thought would resonate with the local crowd, work really well. And that was the sort of first experience of seeing marketing deliver.
So scenic route is such a great description. I didn't quite know what you meant by that, but that's
Yeah.
So you really got to kind of like live it and breathe it for a while, which I
Yeah.
guess if you go to school for 10 years, you're not going to get the same amount of experience that you got probably in whatever time that was.
Yeah.
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 Wow. So let's talk about impressive in Australia.
Yeah.
I got a bit of the story from your wife
Yeah.
because I met your lovely wife at the Texpo, New York. You were up on stage being a big shot, and I actually caught up with you later. But your wife's lovely, by the way, and you have a bunch of kids, and there's this crazy story. But tell me about like kind of where that started, how you got involved, and then like I want to know about the leap over here.
Yeah. So Impressive as an agency. It's been around for about 6.5 years, and I joined in 2017. So, talk about the scenic route. I went from working in pubs to running my own events company as chief marketing, whatever, and then worked in tech, and I sold advertising in tech, and then eventually, like digital marketing for me has been where I've been for about 10 years now.
Okay.
10 years now. But about 5 years ago, Impressive was just like a little startup. There was 7 staff. I was staff member number 7.
Okay.
And I headed in there and was just working in sales and helped build out the sales team there. And we went from like a tiny little business to quite a big business.
And what time frame was that? When did you start, and where was your?
Over a 3-year period, 2017 to 2020, we went from 7 staff and about $500,000 revenue to about 100 staff and 20 mil thereabouts in revenue.
Wow. That's nice.
So we grew out that sales team. But what happened, where America came into it, was we were doing lots in e-commerce. We still do. And we started doing some campaigns for Australian brands, scaling them into the US.
Mm-hmm.
And did some good work. Actually, we learnt on the fly, and then started to get some good results, and started to get some really good results.
Right.
Then we started to pick up some American clients via word of mouth. The challenge, so this is over 2018, 2019, and a lot of those clients I was managing. Mm-hmm. The challenge was trying to service American clients from Australia within the Australian business hours.
Yeah.
It was terrible. Like it was really hard. And then outside of that, having the work done on the ground over here, it was tough. So we needed a presence over here. So basically myself and Rob, the owner of the Impressive agency, went, okay, well, we should start something. We should do it over there.
Right.
So that was over 2018, 2019. It took us a bit longer to get here. I think you know that story, but yeah, it took us a bit longer to get here.
Well, you picked a great time to do it all.
Yeah.
It was a good timing. And when did you actually make it here? So one step back. You have how many kids?
4.
4 kids, right?
Yep.
So you took 4 kids.
Yeah.
What age range?
Now they are between 5 and 11.
What's the reaction? The obvious reaction is like, wow, that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
I have 5 kids.
Yeah, I know this.
I'm trying to, how did you pull it off? Like, what was the pitch to your wife? Is your wife just super adventurous? Like, how did you get to do this thing?
Yeah, well, funnily enough, I had like a big, almost like a pitch I was going to give to Ange, okay, you know how we're doing that stuff in the US, and I've spoken to Rob and he's keen for us to do it together. And I had this whole big, deck in my head of here's the reasons why we should do it and adventure and everything else. And I literally said it to Ange, and she's actually here today. But I literally said it to her, what do you think about it? And she said, actually, because it was going to be LA at that point, she said, LA? And I said, yeah. And she said, can I swear? Oh, she said, F yeah. Heck yeah, basically. And I was like, oh, okay.
Wow.
Okay, cool. We're doing this. And the thing is, we talked about moving overseas years ago, and we were supposed to move to Dubai at one point, then the GFC hit. So there was kind of always that missed opportunity of this adventure that didn't happen. So she was on board. And then,
so you folded up your little presentation and stuck it in your back pocket.
Put it away.
Just for walking away. I'll save that for something else.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you relocated the 4 kids here.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
It wasn't. Sorry, I was just going to say, but it wasn't quite as smooth as that because we went through the visa process 2019. Supposed to get here in 19. Got knocked back visas. 2020, finally got the visa over the line. We had to change things up.
Right.
And booked our flights, sold our house, gave away all of our furniture. COVID hits.
I do remember that story now.
Yeah. So we were...
the punchline was COVID hits. I do remember. I remember all that, and then the COVID hits.
Yeah.
And then what? So you guys... Pause. You barrel on. What do you do?
We paused the move. We had to. The flights got cancelled. We were homeless, so we had to find somewhere to live, and we had to go source a bunch of furniture because we'd given all of ours away, and we didn't know how long for. Because remember the start of COVID, it's world's locked down. How long for? A week?
Forever.
A month?
Right.
Who knows?
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, were you guys, I mean, it sounds like obviously revenue wise, Impressive did pretty well during the pandemic. Um, I mean, our business did fine during the pandemic because it's similar in the sense that like it's a necessary part of running a digital business is
Yep.
quality assurance, just like marketing is, whatever. So I think all of us in this kind of like space, cybersecurity, whatever, none of this really went away during the
Yeah.
pandemic, if not ramped up, because there's all
Exactly.
these new digital services that need to figure it out for the first time.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit about what's the niche of Impressive? I read your website, I get your stuff, I talk to you all the time, but like, how did you guys hone in? Because you can't start at a $20 million company, right? Like, obviously, but like, where were you aiming at first to be like, let's try, maybe it was a word of mouth thing, whatever, but how did you get that first idea of a market fit? Like, where did the market come from for this business? And I know it was from a business in Australia that you brought here.
Yeah.
So talk about it either way, whether it's the Australian side or the American side.
It's kind of much in the same. Like retail e-commerce has been our sweet spot. That's where we do our best work.
Right.
So in terms of like the work that we do, because we do SEO, we do paid media management across Google, Facebook, TikTok, wherever. We do CRM and loyalty, mainly sort of Klaviyo and some HubSpot, mainly Klaviyo. And then we do conversion rate optimization. What we found early on was running these kind of multi-channel campaigns where we're pulling levers across content and YouTube and social and the like. We were able to generate really, really strong results for e-commerce brands, direct-to-consumer brands. And like it's not so relevant the product that they sell. It's more just that they've got a thirst to grow. They really value marketing, and they're adventurous. They're happy to try new channels and new ideas and new tactics like those.
But they have to get marketing, right? Like they have to get what you're trying. It'd be like, that's. I think that's your thing. Is like I don't know. I probably wouldn't have been that adventurous. Maybe coming up, I will be. So is it like a maturation thing? Like, are people kind of at a certain point, where they're starting to grow and they realize like, oh my God, we need marketing. We don't know how to do it. Like, who are those people that you guys are kind of getting?
It's an interesting thing because we were just talking about this yesterday. Like some people just have never marketed before. They don't understand it, and trying to explain to them that you're going to need to spend 5, 10, 15, 20 grand, whatever it is,
right.
100 grand, like just blows their mind. They just can't get their head around, that's a big cost because they see it as a cost. And then you've got people who, I think myself, having grown up in businesses and understanding the role that marketing plays, worked in advertising, I've run over the journey as well. I've run a bunch of little small businesses and I've plowed heaps of money into advertising because I know it works. We do it right.
Right.
So it's not a lot of fun trying to convince someone, trust me, marketing works. It's a thing. Like I'd rather be working with people who have some understanding of an appreciation for what it can do. And then they just want to work with people that they trust.
So how do you find those people?
Yeah, it's a good question. Things like this, podcasts. We've got a couple of different podcasts that we run through Impressive. We've got Growth Masters podcast, and then we've got SEO success stories. That's done a pretty good job of just getting the Impressive brand out there and getting a bit of, what's the word? I don't know. It's thought leadership. There's a bit of, infamy, I guess, or just in a very tight little space around what we do. But then SEO, the channels that we run for clients, we're running for class at ourselves. So SEO, for example, we rank really, really well for a lot of terms, and we're just trying to pick our mark as to where we want to get found.
Right.
Social, LinkedIn. I think, and this is a big thing for B2B brands, and it's something that you and I spoke about earlier this year. Like, I really think that B2B brands wanting to grow, you kind of almost need to become like a little media hub of thought leadership, of content, of all those things that are important in your space. And then just look for ways to disseminate that across podcast, video, newsletters, guesting here, there, and everywhere. Having your brand be associated with what you do, but then there's that brand around the way that you do it.
Well, what's cool about what you just said is that it doesn't. That's like that could be at the beginning of somebody's journey, or that could be where I'm at, like a couple of years in. That could be 10 years in. So, this whole kind of my podcast, just the thought of it, same thing. I'm very open about it, right? Like this is all a branding thing, like, but it's cool because people do get stuff out of it. Like once I realized that, I was sitting at one of these conferences or like whatever, and I'm watching this guy on stage, and I see this guy introduce somebody to walk up, and I was like, wait a minute. Just the fact that that guy was excited that somebody had asked him to introduce somebody to go onto the stage. Like that was his version of like being more aware. I'm like, everybody here we're all doing the same thing. We're all just here trying to get somebody to notice us, to check our company out, to see if it's a fit for them, and to buy stuff, right? Like and I think if you're open and honest about it, it makes things so much easier. Like it's like nobody is dumb enough to think you're just going to give them anything for free, right?
Yeah.
And it's a red flag. Like you shouldn't even try to do anything for free because it comes across as disingenuous. People don't get stuff for free anymore. So my question would be, if I was in a market, if I'd been doing marketing, I like whether I worked for a company or done whatever, where do you go to get that first customer? All those things you mentioned are great.
Yep.
So if I was in, I don't know, you were in all sorts of different marketing, but say you were in a specific type of marketing, how does somebody who like has worked in the machine break out and just go start to develop their own kind of version of what they've been in forever, right? Like that's what we're doing. We're just creating our own version of our own, we slice it off. All right, you guys do all this stuff. Now we do this and I'm going to make the money off it. Kind of the same thing. So like, how would you kick somebody off on that journey?
I guess like generally, those first, for most small businesses, I would imagine, especially the ones which are going to sustain for a longer period of time, like you're working your relationships. You're working the people that you've worked with previously. It's people that trust you, because if you haven't got any equity in your brand yet, because you just started,
right?
The equity's in you. So what have you got that you can leverage to, and what you've got is trust with people that know you really well. So it's a leap of faith for people that trust you really well early on, because Impressive, whatever the brand is, doesn't actually have any credibility in the market yet, but you do. So it's trying to get a sense of, okay, well, what's my sphere of influence? What do I do really, really well?
Right.
Who's gonna take a punt on me doing some great work for them? But then I think also, like when you're starting out, like those first few customers, it's so crucial that you do good work for them, because it can be make or break. Like I'm with this American agency, which is a smaller part of the biggest sort of global Impressive group. We've got our customers that I'm still very involved with, and we're doing really good work. We've just got another review this week. We're getting reviews for them across a range of different platforms, because the work is really high quality, and I'm sort of right across the standards. But a lot of that is because you're leveraging relationships to bring these people in. You want to do really good work for them, and that becomes a foundation that becomes case studies, and then expands into bringing on people outside of that initial sphere.
You're nailing it, brother. It's some book I was reading. It was a Dale Carnegie book or whatever. But it's good service. You provide good service and money follows. Yep. I mean, you nailed it. And what's interesting too is I'm almost kind of in the next phase of that myself with our business, where it's like I've built the business brain up as being me.
Yeah.
And so I've started to you abstract yourself over the years, as you know, and you start to delegate and you start to make yourself. But then there's a point where maybe you're too far away. Yeah. And you're like, the thing that was getting me those people was me. So if I completely disappear, the business isn't just going to magically run itself, right? There is some element that I have to be involved, which is the fun part when you start to realize, like, what is that? Like, what is the real part that they need me for? Because I'm not the smart guy. I'm not the handsome guy, for God's sake. I'm not the clear, I'm not all these things, but like there's something that I do. And I think that's the fun part for me as a business owner, and watching my parents do stuff, growing up over the years and run business and stuff. Like that's been the fun part for me, is just like, what value do I add? Where's my real, like on the planet Earth, like what is my value, to this company and to everybody else? So
that's totally the fun part, and identifying that, and then trying to, because you're right, like they come in because of your personal credibility, the relationship you've built, and the trust there. But that trust is built on your standards, on your communication, on your customer experience. It's not setting the target up here and then getting to here. It's like setting it reasonably, explaining why the expectation, and then meeting that and exceeding it. Yep. And then it's then grabbing the essence of all of that and putting it into. And this is where it can come across. It's like you don't want to become a production line McDonald's. but you do need to have consistent standards. And it's like finding that mix of authenticity in the things that you do really, really well, having other people own them and be authentic to it as well.
Right.
So, there's culture and there's all these different things that come into it to make it scalable. Because you're right, you have to step back. You can't, until you're quite a bit bigger, you can't step all the way out.
Right.
But you need everyone drinking from the same fountain of of Kool-Aid, I guess.
Yeah. So when do you see yourself stepping away? I mean, right now, I can't imagine the answer is ever, just like me. Yeah. But is Impressive growing itself to eventually exit? Is that the goal of that big company? Is that is that what a lot of these companies you see that you're working with, like they're trying to just market themselves to get to a certain point so they can go, hey, this guy wants to buy me now. Thank you guys for helping me get there. We're out. Is that kind of the vibe still?
Yeah, that's definitely the plan, but it's a long way away.
Yeah.
We've got some really big goals that we want to achieve here. 5-10 years. Who knows what happens over that period? But we've got some big numbers in place and some big things we want to achieve.
Right.
There's a lot of work to do between now and then. I've got lots of other stuff that I'm working on the side as well to, just because it's fun and I know lots of clever people and I'm trying to, just keep myself engaged.
Well, I mean, I can't imagine you're bored very often. So I'll be remiss if I do not at least attempt. Who was the first customer? When you kind of realized, maybe it was at Impressive, maybe it was, and you don't have to name any names, but tell me the kind of moment where you realize, oh, I can do this business thing. I have the ability to make something, whether it's a service or a product or whatever, and somebody will pay me for it. There's a very small percentage of humankind that's been able to figure that out, and you figured it out. Yeah. When was the moment that you realized that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been involved in so many businesses too, and businesses that I've started and finished off with. If I think about the first customer, this is going to be a random example, but I think it's a good example.
Sure.
This is actually a bit of a different one, but I had a wedding business in Australia.
Okay.
And I was actually a wedding celebrant. It's random. I was a wedding officiant, a non-religious wedding officiant.
Wow. I love this story already.
And in Melbourne, where I was, there was, I used to have the numbers off the top of my head. There might have been 2,000 celebrants, right?
Okay.
Of 2,000, there was about maybe 200 men. Of 200 men, there was about 10 that were under 40. Literally. That was it.
Okay.
So in terms of niche, and I knew this. I'd sold advertising to this industry. I knew that there was this really tight little niche.
Right.
The sweet spot was understanding that couples actually preferred, about 50-50 preferred males and females. So you got 50% of the market who only want 200, a tiny portion of it. And then couples also preferred vendors who were closer in age to them.
Right.
So I was just tick, tick, tick. I'm like, okay, cool. Here's this tiny little niche that I reckon I can build a pretty good business in. So I built a website, did lots of things, and that worked well. But the first customer, in terms of the first customer, it was the point where I realized, and I still think about this now, that, that supply and demand and the perceived value, where I could charge whatever I liked, 2, 3, 4 times the average, because I was, let me get this straight. I was quite good at it. I'm a good public speaker. I could deliver a really good product, but
if anybody knows you outside of this, I don't think that they have a question of how good of a public speaker you are. Yeah.
So I knew I had the product down.
Right.
But it was also understanding that, okay, there's also, I can count on one hand the number of people who can confidently do this product as well as I can. So at that point going, okay, well, I guess I can charge that.
Right.
Great. And being able to charge that to couples, because I knew exactly who my target market was. It was really, vibe attracts your tribe type marketing. Everything out there was speaking to the stuff that I'm into. It was basketball and it was hip hop and it was just, things that I was really into. It was all through my marketing. So then you'd have these couples who were really into those things. It was a really great fit in terms of, product market fit and, being able to charge what you like and and have fun doing it and work with people who really get
Look at you, man. What a see. I was hoping for a great story, and I got one. A friggin' non-denominational Australian wedding officiant.
Isn't it random?
I mean, but it's just, I love it because it's the same. It's the whole reason why I started this. It's just fun. It's like that core concept
Yeah.
is why, Bezos is who he is, and it's like it's all the same stuff, man. It's like if you figure it out and you sell it the right way, making money is not hard.
Yeah.
And it's like I get excited when people realize that, because it's a very small percentage of people.
Yeah.
And if anybody on planet Earth is listening to this, maybe they are like, hey, I could go try. I'm some non-denominational. Maybe not in Australia, but I'm in America. Like whatever. I'm actually a Pastafarian official, by the way. I'm a card-carrying member. I think there's like 3 countries in the world where I can officially be a wedding officiant as a Pastafarian. Anyway, this was great. Let's end here. This was fantastic. I love you, man. You are the wind beneath my wings. You started this whole thing. I'm not kidding you. Like I talk about you all the time. If anybody needs anything marketing, they can't not find you.
Just impressive.
Just look anywhere and you'll see Russ running around waving his arms on stage, impressing a bunch of people. I thank you, my friend. You've been a fantastic guest, and tell the whole tribe I said hello, and I'll return the favor to mine. All right.
Please do. Thanks,
all right, buddy. Be good, man. Thank you, Russ.
See ya. Bye-bye.
See you, man. Later.